Dan?
Yes. Hi, my name's Dan Kesler. A couple of you I know personally from over the years. Most of you have probably seen me as I've been coming here for 5 years to speak before this body. I am an NRA and USCCA certified instructor, and in the past 4 years have instructed over 700 people in this state on safe firearm storage and handling, with the help of many other people, of course. But what I'm here to share with you today is we took a look, myself and a few other people spent over 90 hours going through the data from the Attorney General's report on gun crimes in this state. So the numbers I'm talking to you about today are directly involved with things that have happened in this state, not the nation, not anywhere else. And the reason I think that this is relevant is because all of you are elected representatives of the constituents of this state. So I believe that making legislation is your job to do based on this state, not Connecticut or Massachusetts. I'm going to read some numbers to you. I do have some, I heard you say we can't use props, so I did.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. I did bring a copy of the Attorney General's report I was going to hold up, but I won't.
Okay.
I have sent this spreadsheet that I did this analysis on to everyone in both chambers as well as the speakers, so you all have copies of it, and you can go through the data yourselves to validate what I'm going to tell you. There was a claim that 799 gun crimes were processed and discharged between 2022 and 2023. We went through all 799 case files, individually opening them up in Court Connect to look at the dates of the crimes and what they were. And what we found was that only 261 gun charges were actually charged between 2022 and 2023, and the entirety of the rest of those cases were pending from previous years and still in the litigation. And let me reference my notes here. So from that 261 charges, some of them were heinous for sure, but a vast majority of them were carrying without a license or having a standard capacity magazine, which we don't like in this state right now. The majority of them were not violent by nature. Some were, but not all. The majority weren't. So when we looked at the 170, I didn't say that. So from the 261, 107 actual charges, 170 of these people received no jail time for their firearms charges. 261 cases charged between 2022 and 2023, and 170 of those cases, they got no jail time for the firearms charges. And I didn't have time to go through, I spent 90 hours personally analyzing this data, and I didn't say this either. I'm a biomedical engineer, and I've worked in research and development for over 30 years, so that I look at data constantly. It's kind of a geek thing I do. I had a chance to go through 82 of the 170 that had got no jail time, and 23 of those 82 cases I looked at had multiple firearm charges and rap sheets. So they had gone through the system multiple times without being prosecuted for the firearms charges. 51% of all the resolved cases got no jail time. 38% of the unresolved cases are all that occurred during the reporting period from the 799 that were reported by the Attorney General. 46% of firearm charges for that got no jail time and were dismissed. Now, I'm not a lawyer and I don't know how the court system works, but these firearm charges are not being prosecuted, and the Attorney General's own data set shows that extremely clearly. 72% of those charged, these were the scary numbers, and I can't wait to get this year's report, but 72% of people that were charged with domestic violence and firearm charges. In 72% of those cases, the firearm charges were dropped. For folks charged with substance manufacturing and distribution and also firearm charges, 84% of the firearm charges were dropped. So if we're going to create legislation, we need to focus on prosecuting folks that are committing crimes. And the data that our own AG put out does not support that that's the case.
Okay, you're finished, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Representative Knight.
In looking at the data, it's been a while since I've looked at the report. Did you make any distinctions between a district court felony filing and a superior court felony filing when you did your own research on Court Connect?
So, thank you, Representative Knight. The methodology I used, when I started doing this, I was asked by several factions to look at the data and try to extract certain points from it, but I'm an engineer and a data geek, so what I tried to do was see what the data set said. Unfortunately, the file that the AG gave us was just a blank dump of case file numbers, and so we just pulled them up by case file number and went through all of them.
Okay. All right. Are you aware that if you brandish a firearm or discharge a firearm during a crime of violence, our law provides for a consecutive non-parolable jail sentence?
I'm not an attorney, sir.
Well, it's a firearms case issue, right? Because I would suspect that out of that big data dump, once you cull out the pistol without a licenses, once you cull out, you know, the maybe a few people who got picked up for large capacity magazines, and you actually got to the violent stuff, the heinous stuff, I would anticipate that you would see probably uniformly very stiff jail sentences.
I didn't find that to be the case within this data set. I only got to go through, like I said, 82 of the cases that got no jail sentence. And all of those cases that involve crimes of every nature, but the firearms charges were all dismissed, and that's in the data set.
Could that be maybe that a police officer misunderstanding the law charged somebody with a firearms charge, and then when the prosecutor got around to it, maybe looked at something and said, ooh, can I prove this beyond a reasonable doubt? Maybe the evidence is a little weak. Do you think that maybe that came into some of these decisions, that dynamic? Let me save you the trouble. Sure. I'm going to tell you yes, and I know that Representative Dawson probably has a question.
Sure. I just want to ask you, when you're gathering stuff, are you looking at individual people or each charge?
So the file that was provided by the Attorney General just had case numbers. It had 799 case numbers, and we opened every one of those case numbers, and that showed us the individuals. And then from that, we looked at the charge dates from when the crimes were committed and they were charged, and I could have put the police departments in it if I had time. I spent 90 hours on what I did do. Yeah. So we looked at every individual, but we only were able to look at 82 of the 170 with no jail time, and we saw they were all repeat offenders.
And was it last year?
It was the 2022-2023 AG report. Yes, sir.
I'm just going to make a statement, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but what happens a lot of times, and I bring myself out here. I used to be in charge of the gun court. Rhode Island has a gun court. It's a very successful one, and every case in Providence County, at least, goes to that court. And what frequently happens is somebody will, like this fellow I mentioned earlier from East Providence, he got 100 charges. He's not going to plead to 100. If he makes a deal, I don't know what's going to happen. If he's not going to plead to 100 charges, he's going to plead to some charges, and then in consideration in almost every plea ever, every case, you're going to get counts dismissed in consideration of the plea. And sometimes, and I've had this happen many times, people get arrested more than once, get out, because you're entitled to bail, they get out, get another one. And sometimes, one case will be a little sketchy, this one's strong, a guy will plead to a case, and then they'll dismiss the other case in consideration. So it looks like the guy got dismissed, or he pled, like I had one a couple weeks ago where a guy got serious jail on one case, and he has stupid case over here. So he got a suspended sentence on this one, and he went to jail on this one. That, do you have the ability? I don't think you've accounted for that. Because those statistics you're given make no sense to me. I've been to gun court all the time. Now I'm a defense attorney. Cases get dismissed on the merits. The gun court in Rhode Island was started, I think it was 92, and it was Buddy Cianci whose idea it was.
I like Buddy.
Yeah, right. And you know, I don't want to name the judge, but one judge has been in charge of that thing for the last 10 years, and it's a hard bargain in there. I respectfully, I find that the majority of the people at the ACI, certainly in Max with violent crimes, are coming out of that court. And I'm just a little put off by that, but I respect the fact that you don't have all the information.
I appreciate your comments and thank you, and I will look at that a little more thoroughly, but if I may, I believe the point is that this is a state with a population of 2 million people, according to the last census. 800,000 of those are over at the age of 18, and there were 261 gun crimes charged. That statistically makes Rhode Island either the number 1 or 2 safest state in the nation concerning firearms.
We also have the strictest gun laws in the country. Maybe it has something to do with it too. All right, that's just a comment.
Thank you both. Thank you, Rep. Dawson. And Leader Chippendale.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Kesler, what was the time period, if you said it, I apologize, of the cases? What years did those cases span?
So out of the 799 that the Attorney General said were crimes adjudicated from 2022 to 2023, the dates ranged on those cases from 2014 to 2023. They were all over the place. That's where we pulled out the 261, and we did that based on looking in the individual files and pulling the dates that the police officers charged them with the crimes.
Okay, that's what I suspected, because it doesn't go through court in 1 year, certainly crimes of that magnitude. To parlay off of my 2 esteemed colleagues who are defense attorneys and deal with this in court every day and see it.
Understood.
Like we don't, you nor I. You know, the point which they ultimately made, in which they were setting up very, very well, is that the existing firearm laws in the state of Rhode Island have been effective. We do have a very safe state. We can reflect on our experience in the courtroom and why this may be done, why this may plea out. We can reflect on anecdotes. We can talk about a fella last year or a couple of years ago arrested in Middletown with a firearm and released on the street, who ended up murdering somebody a couple of weeks later in Newport with a knife. You know, we can do that all day long. But at the end of the day, Rhode Island is one of, if not the safest states or jurisdictions in the country.
Agreed.
Our laws do work, but there will always be a faction of our population who just frankly doesn't give a crap about laws. The mother of all laws is, you know, you don't kill other people. And yet, we are expecting folks to look at a firearm and say, oh, well, gee, it's got a pistol grip on it. Damn it, I can't use that one to kill someone today. So it doesn't really make sense to me where we are right now. We are only, and a lot of folks will preface their support for these bills with, oh, well, I support the Second Amendment. You can't really make that assertion when we've demonstrated that the laws that are in effect now and have been for years are working. There is a segment of the population that they will never work on. And that's, reflecting on earlier testimony, where our focus would best be served, on the mental health issues, on the other drivers of the violence itself. Because violence is violence, whether it's done with a firearm, whether it's done with a knife, whether it's done with a Bowie knife, I think someone mentioned earlier. Was it Bowie knife? Bowie knife. or a biblical age gardening tool, you know, such as Cain and Abel. It's going to happen. I think we're in good shape with Rhode Island's firearm laws now, and I think the data supports that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your testimony. Next is Melissa Cardin. And, oh, Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question of this witness, sir? I didn't notice that she had a question. Come on back.
Come on back. I'm back.
Thank you. So just to be sure I heard you right, it was 72% of those charged with domestic violence, you said, of the 733, where the firearm charges were dropped.
That's
Correct
correct.
me if I'm wrong. Okay.
That's correct.
And the ones that had drug offenses were up to 84%?
That is also correct.
Okay. I think that's the problem right there. So instead of going after law-abiding citizens, we need to put tougher charges on these criminals. It seems to be a common theme in this state where we just slap them on the hand and let them go. And now what are we doing? We're going after the innocent people. It doesn't make any sense here. Something's got to give. Something's got to change.
May I comment?
Okay.
Quickly,
Very quick,
I promise. I agree with your statement, and I also think that that if the firearms community were brought into negotiations for drafting these bills, we buy the firearms, we use them, we train the people in the state to use them. We know how the people that aren't supposed to have them get them, and if we were brought to the table, we care about people's lives and safety as well, and we would help you write bills that would keep the guns out of the hands of the criminals without interfering with the honest, law-abiding citizens.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have Melissa Carden. Melissa, welcome. And Colonel Bradford Connor. Melissa, why don't you proceed?